Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core studio. Welcome to the show. Alright, so spoiler season keeps moving on, and a massive spoiler dropped this morning. A brand new god. Yeah, not the frog god, the other new god. Let's jump into it and talk about how in the world, well, can you get all the power out of this amazing god? Because it is quite powerful, and there are so many ways to use it and abuse it. Let's jump into it. So, starting things off, not with that god. There are actually two spoilers from this morning. This is the first one, not a god, but actually, I should have said earlier, it's also a story spoiler, I guess. There you go. Hour of Victory. Cool. If you want to read the MTG story, go for it, mtgstory.com. Enchantment for 3 mana in black. Start your engines! Which, again, is that whole, max speed thing, opponents taking damage. You haven't seen what I talked about that one in the first spoiler episode, go to that one, okay? When this enchantment enters, though, you create a 2/2 black zombie creature token, max speed. Pay 1 and a black, sacrifice this enchantment, search life for a card, put in your hand, then shuffle, activate only as a sorcery. This is a kind of strange delayed tutor in a way, like maybe a zombie tribal deck could justify utilizing it because, again, you are playing this, you are making a zombie. And then eventually, once you get to that max speed, then you can just pay, the diabolic tutor cost essentially to sacrifice to get that. I mean, in total, it is 5 mana to actually tutor, which isn't the worst thing, but yeah, it does take some time to actually get there. I guess if you've got to start your engines deck, then sure, you can maybe get that down sooner with something else. Like if you played a land that would start your engines early, maybe an Enchantress deck might want to consider it. Regardless, the name of the game right now is, oh my goodness, Ketramose the New Dawn. This is going to be an incredibly popular commander. It is going into a design space that we really haven't seen explored entirely from one of the angles, I should say. A 4/4 legendary creature god for 3 mana in Orzhov, Menace, Lifelink, and Indestructible. It can't attack or block unless there are 7 or more cards in exile, so that won't take long at all, really. I mean, if you're building around this, you will be able to do that quite quickly. And it is nice having, Menace, Lifelink, and Indestructible being very, very, very hard to deal with that indestructibility. Menace, sure, I mean, get through in combat, that's nice. Lifelink, though, yeah, let's pad the life total a little bit. And we're going to want to do that because whenever 1 or more cards are put into exile from graveyards and or the battlefield during your turn, you draw a card and lose 1 life. So there are some restrictions on this. Let's break them down real quick. 1 or more, that is the very first restriction. So again, like a mass exile effect out of a graveyard or say a mass blink effect on the board, that only is going to net you 1 card and 1 life loss. So do keep that in mind. Obviously, if you've got some repeatable effects, some effects are like 1 at a time, then yeah, you can draw a ton of cards with this and lose a bunch of life, so don't worry about that. Ketramose will get you some life back though, right? And you've got other life-gaining effects too, so don't worry about it, it's okay. That being said, the other limitation on this is during your turn, so do keep that in mind. And again, also keep in mind that this does apply to everyone's graveyard, not just your own, which is huge. And it also applies to basically, again, anything from the battlefield, essentially going into exile from your turn. There is no May on this as well, so do keep that in mind. An opponent, I mean, like, if you're playing in specific decks, you could just get taken out, essentially, by, an opponent maybe utilizing a combo. Usually some of those combos are kind of, more on their own turn base, but some aren't, essentially. We'll talk about one here in a little bit, but if you're playing against, say, a blink strategy that happens to have a combo going on, they could just take you out by forcing you to draw an absurd amount of cards, but also lose 1 life at a time. So, yes, that is a way to lose. I'm not trying to say this isn't a powerful commander. It is a powerful commander. There are some times where you're going to get got with this, essentially, on accident, and it's going to be kind of funny. That being said, of course, you can utilize those own combos on your own to draw an absurd amount of cards and maybe even basically like your entire deck. Like there is a life, limitation to that. There is a upper threshold of that because, yeah, I mean, you're losing 1 life each time. That being said, of course, there's ways to either negate that or even turn that into actually life gain, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But yeah, this is a very, very powerful commander. Again, low to the ground, just 3 mana in 2 colors that are very good at utilizing both, well, blink effects and getting things out of the graveyard essentially into exile. So yeah, you can do a lot with that. Also like life manipulation things too. You could do like a life swap strategy where you go super low down to the ground. You lose your life total way, way, way down from drawing a ton of cards, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, you and I switch life totals, X's mortality kind of things as well, or like, hey, everyone, repay in blood, like everyone, is it repay in blood? Something like that. Everyone down to just 1 life. Everyone's at 1 now. Okay, cool. And then win from there. There's a lot of cool things that you can do with this one. There's a lot of cool cards that work really well with it. And again, it is a design space. Like, yes, we have worked with like Blink commanders in the past, an absurd amount of Blink commanders in the past. But now we've got one that's like, okay, I care about also, and maybe more importantly, and you can build around this in a very powerful way, exiling things out of graveyards. And especially 1 at a time exiling, you can do some very, very powerful things, get a ton of card advantage. And again, this is a commander that is going to stay in play quite a bit. It is indestructible. It's going to stick around. Have fun with that. So yeah, this is a commander that I think is going to be really, really popular. Let's talk about how you can best build around it right now. So, first up, I'm just going to go in the order that Moxfield has, and apparently we're starting off with artifacts, and first up we've got Ghost Vacuum, an artifact for 1 that I did not realize is $4 right now, my goodness. That being said, there's plenty of other cards that work really well with it for you budget fans out there like me. Tap exile target card from a graveyard. I mean, this just at a base level, even if it doesn't have anything else on it, all of a sudden you're just like, okay, I get this in play, I've got my commander in play, any card in any graveyard, including your opponents. Maybe it's an evolving wild they sacrifice or whatever, okay? Like, oh, okay, I tap this. All right, that's gone. Oh, awesome. I draw a card and lose 1 life. This becomes now just tap, draw a card, lose 1 life. It is a repeat Phyrexian Arena, essentially. On top of that, pay 6, tap, sacrifice it, put each creature card, exile with it on the battlefield. Under your control, they flying counter on it. Each of them is a 1/1 spirit to other types. Activate as a sorcery. So yeah, sure. If you want to save up a bunch of creatures with this, you can get a lot of really cool ETBs, LTBs, triggers, that kind of stuff as well. And a giant, spirit army as well. Next up, Phyrexian Furnace. Actually did an entire kind of joke episode around this one. Because technically, if you want to be a really mean person, don't do this. Technically, a rule in Magic that is literally never followed by anyone ever is that your graveyard order does matter. Like the same as your library order, that you can't just go move that around. The graveyard order technically matters. It's really annoying. It technically matters. It really doesn't matter all that much, and they probably should just errata these things. But this is tap, remove the bottom card of target player's graveyard from the game. And yes, again, the ordering matters. Has to be the bottom card. So, yeah, it's kind of strange. I did an entire episode around it. Don't be a mean person. Do not be like, well, you have to have it in that order, and if it wasn't that order, then you lose the game because of rules. Don't do that. Okay, that was an entirely joke episode around this one. That being said, yeah, just again, tap, exile something from my graveyard. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, it does if you really want to get rid of certain things, but it doesn't matter in the fact that it's just tap, draw a card, lose 1 life. You can also pay 1 to sacrifice it to exile a specific card if you need to, or just get that extra card draw when you need to. Scrabbling Claws, there you go. Tap, target player exiles a card from their graveyard. This is the fixed version, I guess, of Phyrexian Furnace, where this is okay, you get to choose. I don't get to choose, but you get to choose, and the ordering does not matter. You can also pay 1 to sacrifice it, exile a card from a graveyard, and draw a card as well. Mesmeric Orb, another artifact that can be huge for this kind of a strategy, because there's going to be a never-ending supply of cards for you to exile out of graveyards. It's an artifact for 2, when a permanent becomes untapped, that permanent's controller mills a card. So being able to be oh, okay, are you playing spells? Are you attacking with creatures? Are you tapping your lands? Awesome. Good. Yeah, okay. Tap those things. They're going to untap, and all of a sudden, you mill. And I mill, and everyone mills. It's a great way to, again, have everyone mill a lot of cards throughout the game and give you, again, basically an unlimited supply of cards that you can target to exile to get some card draw. Next up, life gain, of course, can be very, very important for this kind of a commander. Soul Warden, or any of the Soul Sisters, or any other, there's a lot of other effects out there hey, creatures coming into play, gain life. This one, and the other Soul Sister, is Amazing Soul Ascendant. Whenever another creature comes into play, you gain 1 life. This counts any creature, not just your own. So you're just passively gaining an absurd amount of life with this, because thank you, opponents, for playing creatures, or thank me for playing creatures. Or again, if we've got our Blink combo we're going to talk about here in a little bit, I just negate all the life loss I would ever have from drawing those cards anyways. Yay! Lion Sash, a very good card for this strategy. A 1/1 equipment cat, because that's a thing, for 2 mana and white. Pay a single white mana, exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a permanent card, put a counter on Lion Sash. So this can actually grow quite a bit. And then also, it has reconfigure, so you can attach to a creature basically as an equipment. Equipped creature gets +1 for each counter on Lion Sash. So this is, yeah, a great way to essentially get rid of things out of graveyards. Again, basically this 1 mana, draw a card, lose a life, also grow the power of this. That being said, that is, white mana. It's a bit more specific, so let's just generalize things with Withered Wretch, a generic mana. Great. 2/2 Zombie Cleric for 2 mana in black. Pay a single generic mana, exile target card from a graveyard. Absolutely. Again, like, you're going to have the most graveyard hate potential at the table. It's like, oh, do you have a reanimation deck over there? You're in big trouble because like half of my deck is about removing things out of graveyard specifically. So it's a good thing to obviously get rid of those things, get rid of like flashback cards your opponents might have, anything else they might actually want out of their graveyard, it's gone. That being said, of course, this is just pay 1 mana, draw a card, lose a life. Greed, eat your heart out. So yeah, this is a very, very good card in combination with your commander. Now, again, when I talked about kind of combos that actually can get you, but also can work for you, Feldar Guardian, of course, is one of them. A 1/4 cat beast for 4 mana in white. When it enters the battlefield, it may exile target permanent you control, then return to the battlefield on its own control. This works with nearly any other like blink effect creature kind of thing, essentially like a Restoration Angel, a 3/4 angel with flash and flying for 4 mana. Enters the battlefield, it may exile target non-angel creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. Basically, you just blink both infinitely. Okay, rules lawyers out there. Not infinitely, but as many times as you can. Now, obviously, just with these two together, you're going to want to stop at some point because, yeah, you lose 1 life every single time you are doing this. You exile a creature from the battlefield, you gain a life. Sorry, you gain a life. You lose a life, you draw a card. Now, you keep losing that life, you're going to eventually just lose the game. Or if you run out of cards in your library, too. That being said, obviously, if you're like, I'd like to draw 30 cards, you can probably make that work. That being said as well, if you've got like one of the Soul Sisters in play, again, that life gain is going to negate the life loss. So yeah, that's great. Also, again, this is kind of the warning disclaimer of this commander. Again, the life loss and the card draw on any creature or anything being exiled from the battlefield on your turn, again, is mandatory. It is not a may. Meaning that if someone else goes off with this combo on your turn, which they can, again, with this one specifically, because they can flash this in. Of course, there's other blink effects, so they could, like, reset a combo as well if they already went through one. Yeah, they could just make you lose. So do keep that in mind, though you might have your own card to kind of save you from that if you have a way to, like, take out your commander or blink your commander away, like, until the end of the turn or something. So there are ways to actually prevent yourself from losing the game, but it is something that could be a fun gotcha moment because, again, the power level of this commander is quite high. There's a lot of power potential for this one. Again, a very hardy commander that is hard to deal with and gives you an absurd amount of easy card advantage throughout the game and repeatable card advantage. But yeah, there is kind of a, yeah, that actually affects me too, kind of effect to it as well. Shielder the Apocalypse, though, if you've got $88 lying around, it's a really good card for you. 4 or 5 Phyrexian Praetor with Death Touch for 4 mana in black. Whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. So literally, with your commander, you're like, okay, yeah, I exile something from my graveyard. Awesome. All right, I draw a card. I lose 1 life, I gain 2 life. Congratulations, you are now up 1 life. You are literally just gaining life whenever you're drawing cards, even with your commander's effect that would normally be losing you cards, so that can be absolutely huge. Of course, next up, when it comes to hurting your opponents, punishing them, taking them out of the game, Sir Conrad the Grim can be a great way to do that. Whenever another creature dies, or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to your opponent. Basically, if a creature goes here, there, or anywhere, essentially, it pings an opponent. And especially, this, obviously comes into play when it comes to you building around exiling creatures out of graveyards, exiling from the battlefield, whatever you're going to be doing. Like, whenever creatures leave the graveyard, essentially, you are going to be pinging your opponents and hurting them. You can also pay 2 mana and every single player mills a card, which, again, 2 mana for that effect might not be the best, essentially, but still, it's on a card that already is giving you so much value by punishing your opponents. And also, it's pay 2 mana, basically give yourself 4 targets for your effects to then draw cards with. So that is absolutely huge. Next up, Cemetery Tampering. Again, just ways to essentially consistently mill yourself is going to just be a great source for potential card draw for you. Jam it for 3 mana in black, Hideaway 5. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may mill 3 cards. Then if there are 20 or more cards in your graveyard, you may play the exile card without paying its mana cost. Yeah, being able to play things for free, that's nice. That being said, what really matters with this, obviously, is just, hey, upkeep, mill 3. All right, I've got 3 new targets for me to actually exile, 3 new ways for me actually to draw cards. Again, every single time you hit your upkeep, this is happening. It's a lot of value to be had on top of the free card that you can cast. Now, when it comes to giving yourself a lot of targets for exiling out of your graveyard, though, I've got to bring up Morality Shift. Wizards reprint this card. It's so cool and so old, and I love it. It's from my childhood. Anyway, sorcery for 7 mana in black. Exchange your graveyard and library, then shuffle your library. So basically, just mill yourself an absurd amount. So yeah, just get a lot of things in the graveyard. Now you've got an absurd amount of things to target, absurd amount of ways to draw cards. Obviously, it would have to be at a specific point of the game where you're like, okay, I need the right amount of cards in my graveyard. Like, if you got other ways to mill yourself a lot, great. So you've got like 20 cards in there. Okay, I've got like 80, not 80, it wouldn't be 80, like 60 cards in your library. You swap them, now you've got a lot of targets, and then you have enough cards left that you probably need to actually win the game with that too. So it is more circumstantial, but again, just think about some mass mill ways or some ways to, get your opponents to mill a bunch of things too. There's a lot of spicy things you can do with this brand new commander. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. As always, comment below with your thoughts on it. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.